Hey writers, so today's the day. It's the day we've been waiting for a while. It's the start of our fairy tale unit. I hope you're excited. I think you're really going to enjoy this unit, and I know I'm going to enjoy teaching it to you guys. So before we get started, the first thing I need you to do is you need to have some type of piece of paper, okay? I have just a sheet of copy paper, but if you have a piece of notebook paper, just something loose that you can fold, okay? So grab that, and then grab your writing journal. Okay, it's been a little while since we've been in there, but I want you to have your writing journal, and of course you'll need something to write with, okay? Either a pen or a pencil, either one is fine. So if you need to pause and go get that, go ahead and do that, okay? So we've been kind of reading or watching lots of different fairy tales. I hope you've had a chance to get on Epic and see some of the different fairy tales that I sent you guys, and have had a chance to watch those or read those. And I also hope you've had a chance to watch the video on Prince Cinders. Okay, I know a lot of us read it together in our Zoom meeting the other day, but I also sent you a link to that, and you're going to need that link to do some of the work that we're going to do with this story. Okay, so whenever I read a fairy tale, when I was little, fairy tales were my favorite, and whenever I read a fairy tale, I always think that before they were ever written down, they were just told over and over. They were kind of passed down, almost like a folk tale. And some people might say they are the most beloved stories that we have. Okay, we love the story of Cinderella. We love Hansel and Gretel. We love the Three Billy Goats Gruff, and all of those stories that we remember. So in a minute, you're going to get to do a little practice retelling, doing a little storytelling, retelling either the story of Little Red Riding Hood or the Three Billy Goats Gruff. You get to pick, okay? And so if you have your little piece of paper, the first thing I want you to do with it is let's fold it. We're going to make kind of a little storytelling book. So you're going to fold it in half, just like if it were a book, okay? Kind of line up your edges and then fold them right here. And flip it over and then fold it again. Okay, so it makes a little book that you can kind of practice reading from. You should have 4 pages. You have a front, and then if you open it up, you have 2 sides, and then you should have a back. Okay, and so I have one that is already ready. I know these words are backwards for you guys, but it says Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, and so think about what story you want to tell first. You're not going to write it down. This is just kind of like a little book to plan. Okay, so think about, do you want to do Little Red Riding Hood, or do you want to do the Three Billy Goats Gruff? I know Little Red Riding Hood way better than I do the Billy Goats Gruff, so that's why I chose that one. So once you have that decided, I'm going to show you a way that you can retell this story. Okay, so I'm imagining the first part of my booklet. This is going to be the backstory, kind of like what's going on in the story, okay, or kind of the setup, you know, what's taking place. Then as I open my book, I'm going to have kind of the first scene or the first small moment, and I want to make sure I include some dialogue and some details in that part. Then the third page of my booklet is going to be where the trouble happens. What's the problem in my fairy tale? And then at the end, I'm of course going to have the ending. Okay, and so this is something you can practice with somebody at home. Once we finish our lesson, you can do this with mom or dad or a brother or sister, anybody that you can get to listen to you. Okay, so think about the story that you're going to retell and how that story will fit into the pages of this little booklet. Okay, kind of the background, the first scene, the trouble, and of course the ending. Okay, so I'm going to go first, and I'll show you how I will do this, and I'll hold my little book up and touch it while I talk. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who always wore a bright red hood. So everybody called her Little Red Riding Hood. She was always told, don't talk to strangers, but she never remembered because she was such a friendly little girl. So I've kind of given you the backstory. Now I'm going to open it up. I'm going to do the first scene, the first small moment. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother said, would you take a basket of lunch to your sick grandmother? It will cheer her up. So do you see how on there I told a little small moment? And I included some dialogue. I said what the mom said to Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, I included some of those things. Then I'm not gonna do all of this, but then you would do the trouble, and then you would think about and talk about the ending. Okay, and so what you're going to do is put the story into your own words, and this is just here to help you plan. Okay, so if you want to stop your recording, you can do that now, or you can do it after the video is over. This one will be a little bit longer since it's our introduction to the unit. Okay, so I want you to imagine if we were in class together and we did this, and everybody told their version of either Little Red Riding Hood or Billy Goat Gruff. Can you imagine all of the different versions we would have? Okay, they'd probably be very similar in a lot of ways, but they would each have our own take on it. Okay, and that is, we kind of give our own personality to it. Okay, and so that just kind of helps me lead into what we're going to talk about and how we're going to start our fairy tale unit. And that is with a fairy tale adaptation. Okay, and I know that's kind of a big word, and it's a word we usually hear in science. But an adaptation is when something is changed. Okay, when you have something that's an original, but you change it, you put your own spin on it. And so we see that all the time in fairy tales. Writers adapt fairy tales all the time. They take a classic version of it and then they change it. Okay, and they kind of make it their own. And they do, I don't know why they do that a lot with fairy tales, but they do. And there are some really funny adaptations out there. Okay, and we've talked about that a little bit. But so today, what we're going to spend our time doing is studying our book on Prince Cinders. Okay, we're not going to really start writing a fairy tale or anything like that today, but we're going to do a little study of this book, and we're going to kind of ask some questions about adaptations and why an author might do an adaptation. Okay, we're going to do a little investigating. So I want us to think about a couple of questions. Okay, one is, what does the author seem to be trying to do when he or she changes some things and not others in a story? Okay, so that's a question we can think about. And then most of all, how will studying an author's adaptation, how will that help us when we start writing our own adaptation? Okay, so before we start writing our own, I think it would be helpful for us to study some, okay, or at least study one. And we should try to figure out how the author did that. All right. So some of you all have already heard another adaptation of Cinderella, but since we're doing online school and virtual learning, this is the one we have. Okay. I think there are some on Epic. If you want to look at some other versions of Cinderella on Epic, you can do that. I think I saved some adaptations to that collection, but this is the main one that we're going to work with throughout this part of the unit. Okay, so you're going to work, though, when we do this together, this is what we'll do. But you guys are going to be able to adapt Little Red Riding Hood or the Three Billy Goats Gruff, and then you're going to get to pick your very own and adapt any fairy tale you want to. Okay, it's just going to take us a little while to work through it. Okay, so if you look at the front cover of our book right here, you should see one adaptation right away. So I want to know what you're thinking. What do you think? If you said in here, in this book, Cinderella is a boy and not a girl, you are exactly right. That just right there on the front cover, we have a clue already. The first change for this adaptation is that Babette Cole, the author, she changed the character. She changed him from a girl to a boy. Cinderella's not a girl in this story. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit, and I want you to think about some other adaptations, other changes from the original Cinderella that you see in this story. Okay, and then I also want us to think about, why would Babette Cole do that? Why would she make that change? Okay, so I don't know why she changed Cinderella from a boy to a girl, but I don't just stop there and not think about that question. Okay, I want to use some thinking prompts. I want to think, and I know it's backwards. I'm going to put this in our Google Doc. I might say, well, maybe she changed Cinderella from a girl to a boy because, okay, you can use that thinking prompt. Or could it be she was thinking? Okay, that's a great prompt. Or here's a really good one. My theory is, or a theory is an idea. My theory or my idea is that, and then fill in the blanks. Okay? Why might she have changed Cinderella to a boy, from a girl to a boy? Maybe it's because she wanted everybody to be able to read Cinderella. Did the boys really like to read Cinderella the fairy tale? And if you do, that's fine. But a lot of times we think, okay, Cinderella is kind of a girly book. Okay, so maybe she wanted to say, you know what? This right here can be, it's more for boys. Okay. Cinderella can be for everybody, but boys might enjoy reading this one a little bit more, even though I think we all thought it was pretty funny. Okay, so one thing I'm going to write down after thinking about my prompts is I'm going to start a little list. Ways authors adapt fairy tales. And the first thing I'm going to write is they change the character. Okay, so I wrote on there, change the character. And she did that by changing Cinderella from a girl to a boy. Okay, so I'm starting my little list. Ways that authors adapt fairy tales. Okay, and in this book specifically, changing the character. Okay, so now I'm going to read a little bit more. And this is where I want you to take out your journal. Okay, and as I read just a little bit, I want you to write down some notes, just like I did right here. Okay, you don't have to have the title up there. But besides changing the character, what did Babette Cole do in our story on Prince Cinders? Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit, and I want you to listen, and I want you to take notes. Prince Cinders, I'm going to try to do it where you can see it. Prince Cinders was not much of a prince. He was small, scrawny, he was small, spotty, scruffy, and skinny. He had 3 big, hairy brothers who were always teasing him about his looks. I think they're funny looking. They spent their time going to the palace disco with princess girlfriends. They made poor Cinders stay behind and clean up after them. When his work was done, he would sit by the fire and wish he was big and hairy like his brothers. One Saturday night, when he was washing the socks, a dirty fairy fell down the chimney. Okay, so I have come across several things that I could write on my list right here of changes that the author made. Okay, she changed the character. Now, was Prince Cinders the only character she changed in there? I don't think so. Another one that I came across was instead of having sisters, he has brothers. In the original Cinderella, Cinderella has 3 wicked stepsisters, but in this story, there are brothers instead of sisters. Okay? And the other big thing that I really noticed was that the fairy godmother, she wasn't in that sweet little blue dress like the one in Cinderella. This was from a fancy godmother to a dirty fairy. Okay, one that's less fancy. So see how I went through and I just took some notes on these adaptations, these changes that Babette Cole made about Cinderella. Okay, so when you make a theory or 2 or 3 or maybe about why an author did this, okay, we don't know for sure why she did this. Maybe she just wanted to. Okay, even if our theory isn't totally right, this can still help you with your own writing, okay, as you start to adapt your own fairy tales, okay, because the theories or the ideas that you invent about how and why an author adapts a fairy tale, that will help you kind of grow and drive your own writing. We might say it might help you fuel your writing, like fueling a fire, okay? So make sure you're kind of jotting some ideas down in your notebook. Now, what you're going to do today, your assignment for today, is to re-watch the video that I sent you on Prince Cinders, okay? And as you watch that, I want you to take notes like I did, okay? Ways that Babette Cole changed our story, okay? You might be able to think of some right off the top of your head, and if you can, that's great. You can go ahead and write those down. I want you to put those, you need to start a new section in your writing journal, okay? Maybe take a Post-it note and stick it in there like a tab so you know you're at your fairy tale section, okay? So stick a Post-it note in there on your next clean page, and then maybe you can even give it a title page where it says fairy tales, do something decorative. And I want you to rewatch Prince Cinders, and I want you to take some notes on some ways that this author adapted or changed this fairy tale. Okay, so that's your assignment for today. In our next lesson, we're going to start doing some adaptations of either Little Red Riding Hood or the Three Billy Goats Gruff. So I hope you enjoy doing this, and I hope you enjoyed our little lesson today. And that's all I have for you. So off you go. Happy writing.